Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Neptune in the second house in the astrological chart. So that is a very interesting placement because Neptune is a planet that rules Pisces and rules the 12th house. And the 12th house is all about fantasy, dream time, the spiritual dimensions, past lives, karma, and it's really not, we can boil it down to the spiritual versus the material, okay? The 12th house is a water house, and Neptune rules a water sign. It's very watery, misty, cloudy. And so there's a lot of confusion surrounding Neptune. And when you're under Neptune's influence, this can really play tricks on you. And illusion is Neptune, deception is Neptune, and that's another thing that you have to look out for with the second house, because the second house is earned income and possessions and ruled by Taurus. It's an earth house. The reason that this is so important is that you want to, when you're dealing with the second house, you want things that are tangible and grounded, and Neptune is anything but. So people with Neptune in the second house may not have a good grasp on handling money. We know people like this. I mean, you don't have to be a money maven to be somewhat practical when it comes to handling money or dealing with situations involving money. So this could involve other people who are asking to borrow money and things like that. A person with Neptune in the second house is an easy mark, a soft touch when it comes to financial issues. And I know, I have personal experience with somebody who has Neptune in the second house who was very, is a very generous person. Even, regardless of how much money they or possessions they personally have. And there's a spiritual influence there. This can be very good for people who live in ashrams or other kinds of spiritual communities where I could say like the Hare Krishna temple, where you live in a communal setting and you do certain chores in exchange for room and board. So you don't really have to touch that filthy money. I'm being facetious, but I'm not, because the way that these people feel a lot of times, whether they even know it on the conscious level or not, is that money is the root of all evil, that or they may have some kind of past life memories of, maybe if they have Mercury or the Sun in the 12th house, where they remember being a monk or a hermit, a Buddhist with a begging bowl. And so they just keep that, or like maybe even a Catholic. Yeah, I guess you could say a monk is probably a Catholic or something like that. And they took a vow of poverty, okay? And so they still may retain those things. I'm not saying everybody with Neptune in the second. I'm saying that could be a cellular memory or just like a past life memory, and they don't have the wherewithal to view money in a more grounded way, because to them they may not have even had much contact with money in a past life. That's how I see it in some cases. Now, even in this lifetime, they can gravitate to those types of living arrangements where they don't have to deal with money one-on-one, because they may spiritualize it. And that's why I say make it into something negative, because they think that they've been taught that through the religion they belong to, or because of their own experiences or concepts, they may feel that way. Let's say their sun is in Pisces or their sun is in the 12th house, and they just don't have a worldly perspective to begin with. This can be very difficult for them to kind of relate to money in a practical way. And I would say, because I did look online for information about this, and then I kind of riff off of that. I will say that you have to look at the sun sign. You can't just go by the Neptune placement, because if the person has a sun and earth energy, I think that they will have a good instinctual knowledge of, being practical in life and not have that tendency. And there's a passivity with Neptune in second house. What if your sun is in the 6th house or the 10th house, the work house or the career house, the service house, I should say, the career placement? I think that type of person is going to be much more career oriented, and therefore they're not going to just be very shunning material wealth. Maybe in those cases, especially if they have good aspects to Neptune, maybe with Neptune and Mercury, or Neptune to Jupiter, perhaps they will be good at investing money or just handling it in general. But that's why I would say, just in a general sense, even if it has to do with investing, I could see them being able to pick, the right stocks in a way that is uncanny, perhaps, in some cases. But yeah, the reason that I want to really impress upon people these ideas is because I don't want to get too caught up in it. You can't just isolate one placement of a planet in a house and then act like everything is going to stem from that. In general, in the classic sense, if we just looked at a person like this, they might be very impractical, or you might be, if you have this placement where you don't even look at your bills. You're just irresponsible with money. You just want it to be there. And in some cases, you may have that attitude of, the universe has my back. It might be good for people who believe in the law of attraction, because there's that spiritual or psychic intuitive component to it. But if other factors cooperate with it, you might be irresponsible with money at the same time, where you don't open your bills, or you don't pay your bills, or you just hope that they're going to go away somehow. And this is kind of problematic, because obviously even if you have good aspects to Neptune, you still have to behave in a responsible manner, in a realistic way. It's hard for people who have Neptune in the second house to be realistic about money. And this can also make the person vulnerable to quick get-rich-quick schemes, where the person's fantasizing about striking it rich. And I would say, by extension, just like I said about being a good investor, this could lead a person to gamble. I did not read that where I was looking, but I would imagine that could possibly occur. I think gambling is connected to the 5th house specifically, so look there to see if you have what kind of plants you have over there. But this idea of wanting something to just come to them, and also just daydreaming about, winning the lottery or something happening where they don't have to really do anything for it. Fifth house is supposed to be the sweat of your brow, how you earn money doing it that way. Oh my God. I'm glad I listened to this again. I think I said fifth house. I mean, second house. Second house, second house, second house. So, um, a person like this may feel like money is just going to come like manna from heaven. And, they may go through life trusting the universe. And this is, I think, the whole concept of the begging bowl is that you don't seek your sustenance from man, but from God. And you're doing it through your spiritual devotion or what have you. So, yeah, I mean, but another thing that can happen is that this type of individual may be an easy mark for some kind of a cult or other type of con artist, posing as a religious organization where they're asking for their money. So maybe oh, I'm not going to name names, but maybe a mega church, or they need to buy. I was reading something that someone wanted to buy like a $46 million personal jet or something like that, and was trying to get that from his congregation. Yeah, sounds very spiritual, but that kind of thing. And by the way, I'm being slightly facetious because I know that sometimes people use their personal jets. Maybe they do a lot of appearances and it's a lot easier. But, sometimes the flock might not be making that much money to be funding these extravagant purchases by their leaders. So that kind of thing. And also another area is, just somebody, maybe even like a psychic, maybe like a wayward astrologer who they're trying to, I think it's more like the psychics, because the psychics can always keep you hanging and keep you, yeah, I see something. Oh, I don't want to tell you what it is. But so anyway, the other thing is any kind of a con artist. So, sometimes I'll hear those stories about people who get conned out of money, the pigeon drop scheme. Give me some money and then I'm going to go to the bank. I just want to make sure that you're trustworthy, and I'm going to take out, all this money. I'm going to give you like 10 times what you're giving me. And then they just take off with the confidence, with the money that they've put in confidence, or whatever they call it. So there are people that are fairly intelligent who fall for this as well, I think. So it can be just like this shrouded aspect of their life that has to do with money. Again, if we look at it from a karmic, spiritual, past life perspective, perhaps they did have many lifetimes where either they lived in a society that did not have money, or like currency, or that they just were always kind of protected by being in a monastery or something like that, so they never had to really worry about rent or worry about food. So these types of an influence can be quite hard to pin down or figure out. Another thing that people with Neptune in the second house may really want to spend their money on is something that has to do with art, which is about, entertainment, because it's a form of escapism, and Neptune is about fantasy and escapism, but also that sense of inspiration that comes from the spirit, inspiration. Dr. Dyer used to talk about that. And so this person, if this is you, you may have your heart in the right place. It may be that you are doing some kind of work that is of an artistic or spiritual nature yourself, like you're a healer or you're an artist. And I was, I've heard more than once that people in the healing arts profession, and this could include people who are astrologers, tarot card readers, or psychics sometimes, that they tend to have a difficult time with money. Either, usually it's rooted around this idea that money, that to charge for their services is kind of crass and, unspiritual. And it's a real thing, if a person has that kind of angst, to me, they are a legitimate healer, that they really have their heart in the right place. Because that is part of healing in this world, is knowing what your true nature is. And it's not tied to how much money you have, or, what kind of job you have, or something like that, your possessions. But taken to the other extreme, it can lead to somebody who, can't meet their own needs, can't have, experiences that they really want, like going to a concert. Sometimes people are too broke to go to concerts. And so there has to be a happy medium. And there has to be some injection of realism. So if you have this position, one of the things that might be very helpful is going online and looking at, like Abraham Hicks is a good one, because it's coming from a spiritual perspective, but it's, allowing you to embrace the worthiness of abundance and things like that. Oh, by the way, the second house is also self-esteem, and I didn't see them mention that, but I would say that, in that particular case, that there is this kind of mixed up understanding of, the fact that money is not the root of all evil, and that the person is deserving of having enough to make, to meet their needs and then some. That you don't have to feel guilty. There might be this irrational guilt about having money too, that can come from the martyrdom of what Neptune, being the ruler of Pisces, can represent. So being able to, see money in a more grounded way that is not so emphasizing that money is everything in life, but by the same token, not treating it like it doesn't matter, it has no importance whatsoever in our lives. And also, if you have a healing practice of some sort, that you charge what you're worth. And, you can be reasonable, where it's not like you're gouging people, and maybe, keep the average person in mind, but not to undercut yourself, to respect your need to live, and live in a way that is comfortable and not like, at the margins. And also kind of, you can be altruistic when it comes to money too, in the form of giving to a spiritual organization or a charity and that sort of thing, but not do so to your detriment, where you don't have enough for yourself. You've heard that expression, they give the shirt off their back. That's Neptune in the second house, because it can also be possessions. The problem is, if the person is already struggling financially, it's not helpful to be you know unaware of how much they're self-sacrificial, because we, like I said, we need money to live, and therefore, if a person can't make it with their healing practice, what are they going to do? They're going to go and work, retail or whatever, to just to be able to make ends meet. And they're not going to be able, they're either going to have to do their healing practice very part-time, not at all, and it's going to interfere with the work that they're doing. I actually heard Teal Swan talk about this. And I don't know, I'd like to know if she still has that video up, because that's a good one to watch, and I could even link it if I can find it. I was looking for it, I think. But before I started this practice, even though I don't have Neptune in the second house, I have it in the sixth house, and that's another earth house. So the thing is, I was very concerned about that. Like, is it wrong to charge for anything that has a spiritual nature to it? Because I really kind of was a little bit uncomfortable with that. And, Teal Swan, she's a modern spiritual teacher. She was talking about that you're going to have to make money somehow. So you're telling others that it's more spiritual for you to make money working in a department store than to do it through a healing practice, because it's not a spiritual thing that you're selling. But meanwhile, how will that affect your ability to do your spiritual practice? When you're surrounded by people with a different state of consciousness all the time, when you're just doing something that's disconnected from who you are. So if you really want to help others, in other words, you have to be able to make a living from your spiritual practice. And so that means you have to charge a reasonable amount of money, reasonable to what your needs are. So in any case, I hope that this was helpful for you. If you would like to explore your natal chart with me, this is what I love to do. So I have a link to my website below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.